So do the whole interview like that?
I think so. That's not gonna cause you any issues. So welcome to. So this is series 2, I guess. Or is it? Do we have series, or is it just basically we're just carrying on in our?
We've managed to get another one.
Yeah.
Started.
So this podcast thing is proving to be difficult, just because we're rubbish. No, we're not. But
lots of stuff going on.
Yes. So what we thought we'd do is just have a chat with ourselves, because we haven't told our story. Not that, you know.
You say have a chat with ourselves. Have a chat with ourselves on camera.
Yeah.
You say it like it doesn't happen every day anyway.
That is true. Right.
Stop.
So, I'm sat here with this bearded beauty, Mr. Crow, actual Crow.
Actual crows.
Actual Crows, the rock star extraordinaire. God, I can't stop. This setup has taken ages.
It really has.
Right.
It's going to be probably the setup was taking longer than we're going to talk for.
Yeah.
But
that's fine. It's part of the process. We need process. I was feeling like a bit floaty this morning, so just doing the process has kind of grounded me a little bit, which is good. The pain. Grounded through pain. Yeah, that's like a new religion.
That's ultra running, isn't it?
Yeah. Didn't you were talking about doing ultra running at one point, or were you just looking at the videos of people running through deserts?
The Marathon des Sables.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very attractive to me. Well, I know a few people who've done it.
Okay.
And it is pretty extreme, but apart from one day of that, it's only really a marathon a day in the desert. It's easy. I mean,
why do you? So how many days is it for?
I can't remember. I think it's five days.
So five marathons.
One of them is probably it might be 2 marathons.
How?
It's really brutal.
So is it more the fact that you push yourself through it and done it?
Well, you know what it's like when you push yourself to a position where you're really uncomfortable. You discover things about yourself.
Yes. Sometimes
not good things, but you often surprise yourself with what you can achieve. You think, oh well, I can only go through this much pain, or I can only endure a certain level of discomfort, or I'm only able to do this many things, and then you kind of push yourself through that, and you discover actually maybe you can do more than that, or you think I'm this kind of person, and then you're confronted with the fact that you're not that kind of person.
Yeah.
And that might be a good thing, but very often it's a bad thing, and you think, okay, well, I need to kind of examine myself and what's motivating me to behave in that kind of way. This got deep quickly after
I know.
the actual crows.
Yeah, actual crows. To the jungle.
Maybe this is the actual crows.
Maybe you are actual crows.
My alter ego.
Yeah, actual crows. But actually, going to the beginning.
Yes.
How, why, and where, and when did you get interested, and then sort of in music, and not only just listening to it, making it, and all that kind of stuff?
I don't know. Is it genetic? Nature, nurture? I don't know. Apparently, I don't know whether this is apocryphal and it's just been told so many times that it's become fact, but apparently the only way that my parents could get me to sleep when I was a baby was to put a reel-to-reel tape machine under my bed and play music. Or under my cot, I suppose. And
really?
And it was, so from, single digit months, I had a reel-to-reel tape machine under the cot playing, and that was the only way that they could get me to sleep.
Anything in particular, or was it just any music?
I think it was any music. Yeah, so I don't know what my dad had on reel-to-reel tape, but I mean, they used to listen to whatever people listened to in the 70s, ABBA,
Going to sleep to Dancing Queen. No wonder you turned out the way you...
There was, yeah, exactly. It speaks volumes.
But I suppose it could also be, because reel to reels, were they? I've never heard one actually. Like are they noisy or anything? Apart from
mechanically noisy, yeah, I think so.
So I suppose it's like, going to sleep in a car.
The kind of white noise thing.
Kind of
it's just, there's something which distracts you from. Well, it's sort of a blanket, isn't it? Rather than having pinpoint noises, you have a blanket of just sound.
Yeah.
And that stops you being distracted by individual noises. So that was my introduction to music, I guess. My dad played the guitar a bit, and like probably every child, I bashed on pots with wooden spoons.
Because you play, you're a drummer first, right? And then guitars, and you're one of those multi-talented people.
I don't know whether talented would be the word I would use, but yeah, I hit different instruments.
Hit different instruments and different.
But yeah, drums were the thing that I was drawn to first of all, and I think that probably informs everything that I did after that.
Yeah.
So I approach an instrument from a drummer perspective, which, all the jokes.
Yeah, all the jokes. That's so you. What other instruments do you play? There's guitar, obviously.
So I've done a lot of singing, for better or worse. Did a lot of singing in falsetto because I was a big Neil Young fan, and also Grandaddy. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a big Jason Little fan, particularly Under the Western Freeway. Classic. And I suppose when I was getting into guitar, because I got into guitar quite late. Yeah. I was 17, I think. Okay. When I finally got a guitar that I could actually play, and the action wasn't. It was, I listened to whatever, I can't think of a particular record at the moment, but just hearing the whole record as a document of a band at that moment in time, and the fact that they captured something of all of these people playing together and the excitement of that definitely drew me in. Yeah. And initially, in terms of guitar, I guess, unashamedly, Mark Knopfler. Not bad. He's, got some songs, crazy chops, and I, like a billion other kids, thought Money for Nothing was about the coolest riff ever. It's not bad. And didn't think that I would ever be able to play it, and then just kind of picked up a guitar and started teaching myself. Yeah. But certainly it didn't take too long for me to get into other more left field stuff rather than mainstream. And it was always a kind of emotional response. It was never particularly technically driven. Obviously, the first couple of years, well, not obviously, but in my case, the first couple of years I was into very technical guitar playing, but I just couldn't be bothered to practice. It's quite a dedication, isn't it? I'm just, I'm not going to get there. So then took different routes into it, and certainly the songwriting side of it was where I sort of felt comfortable in it. So when did you start playing kind of live and get into bands and stuff? When did I start doing that? When I was in my 20s. Yeah. Like 25, 6. So I was a bedroom guitarist, probably, I don't even know whether I would call myself a guitarist, really. Not a musician, really. Yeah, just I wrote songs, and the guitar was one of the things that I used. And it felt, because in terms of writing chords and melodies and things, that's the thing that I feel most comfortable with, because that's the thing that I've spent most time on. Yeah. Keyboards, I'm just ropey as anything, and I just have to, keep going and keep going until I get the thing that I want. But yeah, so guitar would be the thing that I would normally sit down and have an idea on. And then just other friends had bands, and I ended up playing drums in a few bands.
You got on tour was it Snow Patrol you went on tour with? Or?
Yeah, so there was a tour which I played drums in. My cousin's husband,
right?
And I mean, we all kind of knocked around together.
Yeah.
And they got signed to Wichita, which was the label that Block Party were signed to shortly after them. And we got to go and do a little bit of touring, supporting Athlete, who we also knew.
Yeah.
And on the tour that you're talking about, Athlete were headlining. Snow Patrol were the main support, and then we were playing first on, and that was pretty crazy because that was just after Run had come out.
Right. Okay.
So obviously there were lots of people coming to the gig to see Snow Patrol.
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you do 5, 6, 7, 8 gigs in a row. As a band, you become cohesive and become really confident and actually play the music properly rather than just playing in the same place at the same time. You play together.
Yeah, it's just kind of you take the thought process is taken out and you're just kind of just doing it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Which is nice. It was a fun experience.
So when did you start making, like, tinkering around with amps and things and all things electronic?
Probably the thing that I would go back to initially was, so after I went to university for a year and did aeronautical engineering, which was...
That's what your dad did?
Yeah, at the same place, Queen Mary.
Because your dad worked on the Harrier, didn't he?
He did, yeah,
That's
which
so
is cool.
That's
yeah,
so cool.
He was, he worked at Hawker Siddeley when they were developing the Harrier, so he was in charge of one of the wind tunnel teams who worked on the wings for that. So I went to university and did like a year of it, and just my heart wasn't in it. I'd been playing guitar for a couple of years and thought that I wanted to get into that. Blah blah blah. Went to a sound engineering college, got a job at Mute Records recording studios, and I mean it was kind of weird because it was a funny little studio, not really a proper commercial studio, but producer Flood used to work in there because it was just around the corner from him. And he came in once and he had all the Love Tone pedals which had just come out. And I think his session sort of straddled Christmas and New Year, and they were going away for a week, and I said, can I borrow one of the pedals? And he was like, well, just take the whole lot if you want. And my brother reverse engineered the Big Cheese.
Right, I remember this story.
Yeah, and at that point, it was like a light bulb going on. Oh my goodness, no! DIY doesn't have to be rubbish.
Yeah,
it can actually be legit and sound cool. And so that sort of lit the spark. Can you light a spark? It was the spark which kind of made me think, maybe I could do something cool. And then years went by and I kind of thought, well, Valve stuff, I always had in my head the sound of a matchless Lightning 15, which I tried in Rose Morris in the 90s at some point.
Because they were like one of the first kind of boutique.
Super boutique. So expensive. I mean, in the 90s, they were like 1,500 quid for a 15 watt amp. And that's when 1,500 quid was a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just knew that there was no way I was going to be able to afford anything like that. And so I just started going on forums. There's one guy in particular on Pro Audio Forum who I'm still in touch with, who just had an encyclopedic knowledge of electronics, just amazing. And I was saying I wanted to get into making valve stuff. And he said, well, if you want to make an amp, buy a 5-valve radio.
Right.
And I can probably tell you, if you can get the circuit for it, I'll tell you how to make a guitar amp out of it. So I went on eBay and bought, I don't know, like 10 radio lot from Reading.
Right.
Drove up to Reading with Deb and picked up all of these half-working radios, and then just started modding them.
Nice.
Which
they must have looked pretty cool.
They looked cool, and they sounded, as you might expect, kind of a bit ropey. But with my band, I used some of them in rehearsals. I might even have used one of them for a gig at some point. But they were, fairly low wattage type vibe and low quality. And because, if you're basing your amp on something that was churned out, very low quality, it certainly wasn't hi-fi.
Yeah.
And I was, the sound I was hankering after was the kind of cost no object matchless thing. And I'm using these like cheap old 1940s radios, and so I slowly started to upgrade parts on the radio chassis, and then I was like, well, I can probably make my own design now, and then gradually started changing components and messing around on that level. And then at some point I got talking with a friend of mine about a low wattage amp for recording at home, and then little chopper.
And when was that?
He came and heard the prototype in like 2006, I think.
Right, okay.
And then pretty much within a few days he said, please make me one.
Right, who was that?
That was Alan Simpson, who is a session guy. And the first time he played it in anger was with Beverly Knight at Milton Keynes Bowl.
Oh wow, it was a fairly big.
So it was a big, a big gig, and I think they were supporting, I can't remember, a girl band from that sort of era, and Don Brown, who is James's mate, who's now playing with Duran Duran, he was playing with whoever it was. I can't remember who it was now. So this world is not very big. There's only like 2 degrees of separation between that person on the gig and another person on the gig, and you probably don't know what it is. But it's funny how that happens.
So has that guy still got that first one?
No, he got into all kinds of financial trouble and basically declared himself bankrupt and had to sell it. But there's a guy called Liam Carter who I had come into contact with before he started Cartech Audio, via Chenzo Townsend, who's a good friend of mine, one early customer of Audio Kitchen, and he saw it on eBay and was like, "Oh, can you tell me about this thing?" And I said, "That's the first one ever. It's got a one-of-a-kind output transformer. If there's anything wrong with it, just let me know, and I sort it out." And so he bought it. So now I know who's got the first one that I ever made, which is nice.
So did that have the sort of the blue Tolex and everything on it?
It had.
Did that come later?
It did have that, but it didn't have the Audio Kitchen badge, and it didn't have the kind of mesh grill on the head. I think it was just solid, and then we had some plaque material from Framus, and the Audio Kitchen logo was cut out of plaque material and then double-sided tape on the front of the amp.
Right, so was that made in Unit 12, this little...
Yeah.
Where we are now?
Where we are now, yeah.
Yeah. There's all made in-house. Paul make the cabinet?
Paul did the cabinet.
About the chassis?
The chassis was, I think it was probably a Hammond chassis, like black powder-coated chassis. That was all, and the early ones were all done on blank chassis. We didn't have any custom metalwork made.
Because everything for the amps is pretty much made for the amps, isn't it? Even in like the filter caps. That's why I love it, especially in the bass ones were like
enormous. That was one thing that I did a lot of work on, sort of early on, changing caps inside the amp, power supply as much as signal things which were directly in the signal path.
Yeah.
and it was incremental, but it did certainly make a sound, a change in the sound, a difference to the sound.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of circled in on the sound that I had in my head.
So I'd say, listening to all your stuff, there is like a theme that runs through everything that you kind of make. There's like this, for me, putting like a name on it is kind of, it's that the amps kind of have got that voxy kind of vibe, but with like Fender shimmer and like that kind of,
that's fair.
That, and they cut and kind of sit in a mix really nicely. You don't need, it's like the big trees, for example, you can almost just plug it in and then don't really need to do much. And I don't know, this is kind of speculation which I've thought about it a lot but not very deeply. I don't come at it from a kind of guitarist point of view. I've come to the conclusion that I don't, because I never, other than the matchless touch tone, which I never bought a matchless and decided I want to make it sound like that. It was an idea that I had in my mind from the 90s, and then like early 2000s I was thinking I want to make an amp that makes me feel like that. Right. Okay.
So I was chasing something that I probably misremembered.
Nice.
And so I never compared anything that I was making to anything else particularly.
Yeah.
It was always just, is it good or isn't it good? And probably because I'd been working as a studio engineer, I was automatically thinking of it in those terms rather than necessarily, do I sound like this Led Zeppelin album or whatever.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So as somebody the other side of the board rather than the person in the live room.
Yeah.
And that's maybe a bit of the reason why they sound like they do.
Yeah. It is tricky because you're always comparing, especially with amplifiers. I mean, I suppose less so now actually, because there are so many different manufacturers, but it always does come down to, does it sound Marshall-y, Fender-y or Voxy, or how do I make it sound like a Marshall or that? But I think people are, because there are so many people making different stuff now, it's becoming less of an issue. But I remember when I first met you, that was in, what was that place called? Is it Vanquish?
Yes.
Vanquish Sounds in Peterborough, sunny Peterborough. And that was the question that the guy in the shop said. It's like, how do you get it?
How do you get it to sound like a Marshall? Actually, to be fair, that wasn't Vanquish. That was somewhere else, which will remain nameless.
Oh, okay. Oh no, the agent at Vanquish.
It was on that. Yeah, it was on that tour that John and I did around the country. It was like, oh, well, it sounds like a Fender. Now, how do you make it sound like a Marshall? Because those are the two questions that I get asked when people come in to try an amp. And I was like, well, you can't really, because it's not a Marshall. It is what it is. And nothing further happened with that. But I learnt a lot of lessons from going around to different shops. Just see, I mean, you have a choice to make when you're doing something creative, or when you're starting an endeavor. You have to confront reality, and you can do that to varying degrees. You can stick your head in the sand and say, no, I believe reality is this, and I'm going to plow ahead with, based on that. Or you can actually accept that maybe I don't have the best ideas ever, and everyone should listen to me. It kind of depends why you're doing it and how much you want to sell and all of that kind of stuff. But being brutally honest with yourself and getting, like that Gary Vee thing, get your nearest and dearest to tell you the 5 worst things about you or whatever.
Yeah, that's
hard.
Yeah.
And
did you do
it's
it,
useful.
By the way?
No, I didn't. You did it, and I'm sure you're better for it.
No. Look, I know a few more things.
I still need to get Deb to do that with me.
It's that was a hard one, but you're completely right. I mean, you need to be self-aware enough to say, well, yes or no, this is good, bad, ugly, whatever.
Yeah, and I think after that trip, it wasn't necessarily about the sound of the amp, but my expectations of what other people should think about my amps were drawn into kind of contrast or into focus, which they were. And I had the kind of sort of hippie idea of build it and they will come kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in reality, you've just got to work really hard and keep plugging away.
Yeah.
And know that what you're doing is actually good subjectively and objectively, and that will give you the energy to keep on doing it.
Yeah. that would have been like 2011.
So yeah,
around there. So
right.
if you started in 2006, so it's like 5 years down the track, which really, when you're building, a business or a brand, or trying to get, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Where are we now? So that's 13 years down the line.
Yeah.
I just, since I've known you, seen where your amps, and especially the big trees, where that's gone and taken you, it's kind of astounding, really. And again, you're still like a dude in a room.
Yeah.
And
the more and more, I kind of feel like rather, and this is, it's difficult to know how to express it, but I don't feel like people say silly things like you're a genius, which is, it's complete nonsense. And that's not false humility, it is complete nonsense.
Yeah.
I'm putting resistors and capacitors together. I feel like someone who's discovered a path up a mountain or something, and then other people enjoy it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like with the big trees, it was there. It's almost like people, I sort of understand when Noel Gallagher talks about the songs that he's written. It's just like it was there, and then I just documented it, kind of thing. That's how the big trees feels to me, because it's got a life of its own now, and I don't feel like I have any particular ownership of it or father authorship of it. It's just kind of, it's there, and I'm glad that people like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I'm a genius by any stretch of the imagination, and that's what I would like people to kind of understand. Like both of us, we just grind away, and it's a February morning at 5 o'clock, and you're in doing paperwork or banging your head against something that you should have got done a week ago.
Yeah,
and that's what Audio Kitchen is and Monty's is. You've got to just keep on chipping away.
Yeah, but that's any business, if bands and anything like that. There's no
hard work.
Yeah, it's hard work. You have an idea. I love the moment of when you've had many a conversation with me. It's like I've got this idea, and then reality sinks in. It's just like, so you've got to do this, and this. Oh, and pick up the kids and do lunch and all these other things, and a gazillion other things. Which, if you can stay sane and carry that through.
Yeah.
Going back to the genius thing, I think it's what people are kind of commenting on. It just comes out, maybe as a genius, but it's your sort of idea of what sounds good. That's where it is.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
So it's because that's all you're doing. You've said you had there was a sound you were going for. Well, a sound and a feeling you were going for. And if you can create that and other people get it, then that's a good thing.
I suppose it's a bit like songwriting.
Yeah.
Because you're communicating with people in a way, and making people feel something.
Yeah.
So, which is what you're doing when you're writing a song. So there are certainly similarities between the two.
But it's all of those things. It's like you listen to comedians, for example, and they write, good jokes are the ones that make them laugh. They find it funny.
Yeah.
And then you just have to hope that people, there's people out there with a similar sense of humour or a similar sense of, what sounds good. Or I remember when I started doing the pickup thing, I'd sit there and make something and then analyse it for hours and be like, oh, it needs a bit more of this, that and the other. But it got to the point where I knew whether I liked it or not, like the first second. So it's literally, you just important. Like plug it in, strum it, and it's just instantly, it was like a yes or no. So it's kind of, you have to go with your gut and your intuition, and
learning to trust that is
that's
tricky though.
That's the hard bit, and also then when you've got other people kind of putting their 10 penneth in, but it's their ears aren't the same as yours, so it's kind of necessarily. But so it's kind of, you've got that kind of battle all the time, which is a tricky one, especially when you kind of sort of got a bit of, there's a lot of us have that element of self-doubt. I mean, I think we're quite lucky because you doubt yourself, I doubt myself, but I don't doubt you,
and I don't doubt you.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean?
That's helpful.
And you're quite. It's good to have somebody that would just give you a friendly slap across the face and go, no, it's all right. So that is a good thing. And
so enough about me. I'm bored of talking about me.
That's all good.
How you need to tell the story about
me,
about Monty. So, like, way back when did you get into music? What was your first exposure? First CD?
First CD, all those kind of things.
All of those kind of things.
Okay, okay. So the first guitar, the music, and I've always been into music. My dad used to play. What was it? My dad was a big Edgar Broughton fan. Don't know if you remember them. And so he had that. The album Wazza, and he had the best of the Eagles until my stepmom left it on the car dashboard and it got melted. But so all of that was kind of around when I was a kid. But the main thing that I remember is, I think it was Christmas 1986. I was sat with my gran on the sofa, and Back to the Future was on, and that was the Christmas movie. Okay. And ever since then, I'd wanted to play guitar, I wanted to skateboard, and I wanted to have a pickup truck, and that's it. And then my whole life has been
trying to scale those three peaks.
I tried to skateboard, and I can use skateboard as a mode of transport. I can't use it. I'm no Rodney Mullen, or but you loved all that stuff. But damaged myself more. But still got one. And at one point, I mean, I didn't even have money to get the bus when the bus cost 70p, and so I used skateboarding was my main way around. But I digress. But yeah, it was literally from then, and I kind of after that Christmas, I tried to badger my parents to get me a guitar, and it wasn't until I was 11 when my stepdad sort of went out and. He said, I've got a surprise for you, and came back, and he'd had this guitar, which is actually that one that's there, which now is all signed by lots of people.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is really cool. And there was a guy called John Cadman who was my guitar teacher. And
you were 11?
I was 11. It was classical guitar.
Right.
I wanted to learn, I just wanted to play guitar. I didn't really care what it was. But,
that's interesting. So what made you want to play guitar but not necessarily electric?
I just wanted to play guitar. It was, I don't know, it was something, it all goes back to, it was that Back to the Future thing. And then I used to love music but my first album was the Bad album by Michael Jackson. Maybe, it's not so great to talk about him now. I don't know.
Is that the one that Jennifer Batten played a lot on?
I don't know. I think that was Steve Lukather, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? Okay.
But it wasn't necessarily. I've never been a big fan of solos or all that kind of stuff. I've always kind of been obsessed with like rhythm
Dancing.
playing and dancing. Yeah, anybody who knows me, yeah, couple of shandies and I'm away. But it's like groove and like those little popping lines and stuff. That's when I'm
kind of. So you're thinking about it like a drummer almost.
Almost, although I can't drum. Like I've tried. My brother can drum, but as soon as I can do 2 limbs on most things. As soon as a third one, let alone a fourth one, gets involved, everything switches off. But yeah, so I had the guitar. Started on the classical guitar, and then I got into. My mum started putting me into competitions and things. So I did a load of those around sort of the Buckinghamshire area.
Did that lot just make you feel sick?
Yeah, but I was winning them, so I kind of.
Wow.
Yeah. I got pretty good, and then I auditioned for sort of performing arts school because my guitar teacher at the time was the guitar teacher there, and he said you should go.
Right.
Then
okay.
It was just a case of you should just spend. You do the morning doing your maths and everything, and then the rest of the day was as I thought going into it was music, but I had to do a lot of drama and all that kind of other stuff. They tried to make me do ballet, but I didn't do that. I
can imagine you as a
ballet dancer. Yeah, me in lycra. It's not pretty. It's
black
really
tights.
No, they were blue and blue with a white kind of leotardy thing. I had to have oh god, it's hideous.
Black
strap and everything.
Maybe more acceptable.
Yeah, black all over.
You could have been a ballet dancer now if they just had black tights.
Yeah, if they just had black tights, but possibly a ninja.
Yeah, dual.
Yeah, but again, so it just went through that, and it's kind of just going through that. I had my first band at that school, which.
And what age were you when you?
I was 16 going on 17,
okay.
and they had a music showcase at the end of each year. There was a dance showcase, a music showcase, and a drama showcase. And because the school was quite classical, they only really wanted the classical musicians to do it. But we petitioned got all the students to be like, just let us all we wanted to do is put a concert on.
Yeah.
The school had a theatre. I mean, it was kind of did it. So anyway, we ended up putting on that show. We played. It was No Doubt, Don't Speak. Joan Osborne, What If God Was One of Us? Do you remember that one?
Yeah. Joan, I was trying to think of what her name was the other day and couldn't. Yeah,
there you go.
Joan Osborne.
And then Deep Blue Something, Breakfast at Tiffany's, which I sang. And
wow.
it was just it was really weird. We played those 3 songs, and then they wanted us to play more, but we didn't know any more songs, so we just played
the same one
again. And it was just the weirdest experience because it had the whole school was there, and everyone was standing up and screaming, and then we went from packed down and go back to the dorms, and you're literally walking past like the dorm blocks, and people just going ah. But it's like the most surreal little bubble.
That is, that's kind of cool though.
Yeah, it was really cool.
How many people in the school? 7.
4. Yeah, 7. And there was like 400, 500, something like that.
So not super huge, but that's still quite a lot of people.
No, but it had only just gone co-ed just before I started. So when I was there was like 11 boys and a lot of girls.
Right.
So of course, then I was just like, my life is going to be like this from now on. I'm going to be a rock star, and then obviously, I was in that little bubble. Then sort of left it, and when I left the school, I got. I mean, there's a sort of a series of unfortunate events, but kind of got kicked out of home. I had, I had nothing, and then and life didn't go that way. So, I had to kind of, from the age of 18, was kind of was on my own, and then managed to wheedle my way into the Guitar Institute.
Okay.
Got funding through the Musicians Benevolent Fund. Did that, and from going through there, I got into a band and started gigging around. And when the Musicians Benevolent Fund helped me get funding for the Guitar Institute and like living costs, they also bought me a guitar because I lost that as well. But
right.
And
I feel like I want to dig into that, but maybe now's not the time.
Oh, you can dig away. But that guitar was it was a Mexican Telecaster, which sounded great but kept breaking, and that's how I started going to Chandler's, kept going back there to be like, can you fix it, can you tweak it? And I had no money, so it was, and then I started asking for a job, and that's how I got into this whole
and
thing.
who was was that when?
That was when Charlie was there.
Okay.
So you had Charlie, a guy called Brinsley Schwartz, Paul Herman, who now does wall basses.
Yeah.
Damien
was working with him for a while.
Really? Mr. Brubert. But Paul's like one of the best like luthiers I've ever seen. And I remember my first job at Chandler's I was the plec operator, because I wasn't allowed to touch anybody's guitar. This machine was allowed to do it. And but Paul would do all the refrets, and quite a few times he would do a refret, no fretwork, like leveling or anything. He'd put it onto the machine and it would be like, it is perfect, and then he would spit it off. And so I was just really fortunate to then, when I managed to elbow my way in there, to just be surrounded by all those people, and like then just basically steal all their knowledge.
And what was it was it just purely the broken Mexican guitar that made you curious about that, or did you have a level of curiosity about how guitars worked and how they went together and all of that stuff beforehand?
I've always been like a tinkerer, really. It all stems back to being a kid and taking my dad's expensive bedside clock apart and getting a beating for not being. Well, no, he didn't beat me.
Look at all the bits I saved.
Exactly. It's that kind of thing. I like kind of understanding how things work, and that sort of reverse engineering thing.
Yeah.
It's I suppose the same as you. And it was just. I mean, and also I was going back a bit deeper. I guess I was searching for a home, and there's that guitar. The guitar has always felt like a very safe place for me. So being immersed in tinkering with it day in, day out with other people that just want to tinker with guitar stuff, it's just like a little safe place.
And was there a point that you can pinpoint where you felt like the mechanical side of it, the luthiering sort of was starting to come up to parity and then maybe overtaking playing? And you thought, this is something I could do as a career and be happy doing this?
Yeah, I came to realise sort of my mid to late 20s, I was like, I've always wanted to have something of my own, but I realised I'm not a songwriter, and I was getting to the point where I like playing guitar in bands and things, but I want to put more in than I can, because I can come up with a riff or whatever, but I just don't have that extra bit in my head that will finish that off. It's not. I love playing music and making music that way, but I wanted to create something. I'm a creative person, but so it was kind of. Then it flipped into. I wanted to build my own business, my own brand. It's like, what can I do? I tried various things, like drawing and stuff. I did like 3D design and all that kind of stuff, but it's always fell back into like tinkering with guitar stuff. And I suppose it was that thing of like, I'm not gonna play guitar. I'm not no part of me that's I'm not gonna be Johnny Greenwood. So how can I take that and put it into something else? So started. It's
a really interesting process, though, isn't it? Because I sort of had the same thing. Like, I'm fed up of talking about you now. I want to talk about me again.
Okay, fair enough.
No, I'm not at all. But just there is an interesting kind of commonality in that you start off wanting to be a rock star, in inverted commas, and then you kind of think, well, either I'm not going to get there, and being pragmatic, what else can I do? Or you think, maybe actually I don't want that.
Yeah.
And then you start feeling out for different things that you can do. And then, like you say, searching for a home, you find something which satisfies your need for a creative outlet, and something that maybe you do have the X factor in when you're writing songs or playing guitar in bands or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of searching that out. But that's being human, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the journey, man.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be a career. And that's another thing. Like when you turn something that's a passion into a job that you do every day, it changes the way that you feel about it. Not necessarily for the better, but it turns it into a job.
Yes.
And it's the same, if you're in a band, it becomes a job, and it is something that you do. And when you're a kid, when you're 18, sitting in your bedroom reading a magazine, guitar magazine, you think, oh, that would be the most amazing thing ever to be in a band and touring and whatever. And you read interviews and think, oh, I hope I'm going to be in this magazine one day being interviewed. And then you get to know some of the people, or you have some experience of it, and then you think, yeah, maybe I've got the wrong idea of how that is, and perhaps that isn't for me. And maybe I could do that not for my career. Maybe I could play at the weekend or whatever, and just making it acceptable for you not to be this thing. You might just do that thing, like do another job, but be able to have that as your creative outlet rather than everything.
No, it's true. I mean, it goes back to that self-awareness thing. It's like what you're doing. But if you can get up and do something that you love doing most days. I mean, there's going to be bad days. There's going to be whatever. I mean, that's the biggest win, isn't it?
Do you know what? And this morning, I was coming out the house at whatever it was, 5:20, to get in the car. I thought, oh, it's really cold. And a bus went past. And I saw a guy in his hoodie huddled up against the window. And I thought, I wonder where he's going. I wonder whether he's going to like some hand car wash to work there for 12 hours. And I thought, I am so fortunate to be able to get in my car and drive in my car to a job which I love and get a huge amount of satisfaction from. And then know that there's going to be enough money to buy food and pay the rent, at the end of the month. And it's easy when in the middle of winter, when things are not necessarily going fantastically well, to feel sorry for yourself. But really, you've got to get some perspective.
There's something sometimes it's going a bit deep, but sometimes it's quite tricky to sort of helicopter out and then see that the bigger picture. I mean, it's very easy, especially when you're dealing with it day to day and things are changing, constant learning curves all the time, and you get really kind of granular and bogged down in all those things, and then everything kind of swamps over you, and then you can't see the wood for the trees, and you've got to kind of it feels like when you're sinking in a swimming pool and you sort of jump off the bottom, you've got to do that to then burst out.
And I think it's important to build some time into your day, week, where you say, okay, well, I'm going to get off the treadmill for a bit and appraise where I'm at with all of these different things that I've got going on and where I want to be and how do I, what's the next action on all of these points.
I mean, I find it quite
That's
weird.
Really hard to do.
Yeah, well, it's really hard to do. I find things really, I kind of know if something amazing happens, you kind of get this like feeling of like absolute awesome joy.
Mountaintop experience.
And then personally, I kind of know that afterwards I'm just going to go doosh, and then it's going to take a while for me to get back to normal.
You've got to climb up again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, it's like this, the whole thing recently, like in the business things, I mean, the whole thing with Pete Honore, you know, when they launched that, I mean, Pete was just on texting me just like, man, we've just sold, you know, in the first 10 minutes it was like 20 sets, and then it was in 24 hours like 130, 140 sets of those things, and which I was just absolutely blown away. It's more we sell in a year, you know. And then, so I had a few days of just feeling absolutely amazing, and then it was just the reality of like all the other bits that I've never had to deal with. It's like, how are we going to make that many? How are we going to buy the parts to make that many? How long is it going to take? And you've got all those things and those kind of worries.
And also, when you scale up, your quality control, which was easy when you're doing 1s and 2s and 4s, suddenly that becomes a massive deal, because you're just wanting to get through the stuff because you've got this mountain of things to get through, and all you're worried about is getting to the top, rather than working out carefully each step.
And it's just like, oh, you've got to have a plan, you've got to know that, but you can't have a plan. I mean, business plans are just so stupid. I mean, if you look, say if you're doing a 5-year business plan 5 years ago, could you plan for
Brexit,
Instagram? Could you, you know, it's all of these new methods of communication. What's going on? I don't know, bloody train fares. I mean, all of it comes into play. You just can't do it. It's crazy. So it's like with this, yes, I could have looked at it and gone, we could potentially sell a load of these things, which, I mean, I wish I did, and I thought I'd planned on it. We had enough to make, I think it was 50 pickups, 50 sets. You know, that's boxes, like even the straw we put in, the amount of wax we've got. You know, if you get me, and it comes down to like cash flow. We don't, you know, we are so far away from like an Amazon. It's ridiculous, and it's quite easy to forget that. You just think, oh, it's a business. We've got money. We've got this, that, and the other. And then I mean, each order of like magnet wire that we do, because you know it comes from America, and it's about £1,200, you know, £1,200, £2,000. Which, when you're a small business,
it's a lot of money.
Is a big chunk of money. And then, so you got that tied up in places. So when all these orders came through, it was absolutely amazing. And then,
but it's the time from the order being placed to you getting paid for it, because you got all the upfront cost of buying all of the wire and all of the magnets and all of the bobbins and all of the boxes and everything that you've got to get the money from somewhere, I mean, and then you're going to get paid at some point down the line.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, standard bigger business practice is, you know, you get paid 30 days after delivery. And you know, when I can't remember when they launched those pickups, for example, but the box of most of them is sat down there, and after we finish this, I'm going to drive them down there. But it is that whole other element that you don't think about really when you're having the I'm going to have a business thing, which I love. I'm a serial business starter, and you know, I love all that stuff. But it's those practical things, and you know, it takes a toll on you. You know, physically. I mean, you and I both start really early. I mean, I've stopped doing this stupid o'clocks,
which is good.
Yeah, I mean, like 4 a.m. is too
that's too early.
But at the time, I needed to do it, you know, because there was no, you know, the buck does stop with you.
Somebody's got to do it. There are only so many hours in the day.
Yeah,
and if you're not doing it, it's not getting done.
Yeah, and also you can't. I wouldn't expect anybody else who works here to do that. But also, I wouldn't expect, if I'm not willing to do that, there's no way you can ask somebody to do anything like that.
But interestingly, I know we were kind of joking around about the ultra running thing at the beginning, but that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Like, you don't believe that you can work 15, 16, 17 hours a day. Like, oh, well, it's not healthy. You can't run for 26 miles when you're dehydrated or you haven't had this much food or whatever. Well, I'm going to see if I can. Like, of course I can't do that all day, every day for a year.
Briefly.
But can I just push through and get this over this hump?
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily I'm not saying that it doesn't leave scars on you or have a long-term effect on you. But if that's what needs to be done to get the thing done, like the run done or the business over the hump or whatever, then you've got to evaluate whether is it worth my while to sacrifice whatever it is to get this payoff.
Yeah.
And that's always and it comes back to appraising where am I, where do I need to get. And so you said, well, all this stuff needs to get done. It needs to get done sooner rather than later. So I've got to sacrifice maybe a bit of my health, certainly some of my my not sacrifice the relationships, but time that I'd like to be investing in relationships, and just get through this 3-month thing, and hopefully there'll be a bit of downhill on the other side.
Yeah, I remember it's when my kids were really little, I used to drop them off with the childminder in the morning and then work. This is when I was back in the shed in State of the Ark. But I'd sort of flip the day the other way around, so I'd be there in the morning and then I'd work until 2, 3 in the morning if stuff needed to get done, especially when I was doing like the sort of helping Jesse out with the Lazy J stuff, because that was we needed stuff done. But now because they're a bit older, I make sure I'm back for bedtime. So I leave here at 5, and then shoot off because I also selfishly for me I need to see them. I want to be there because my dad, as again we were joking around earlier, when I was little, and my mum left when I was 4, and she empty my dad's bank account basically, so he had to take whatever work he could, and he was fortunate enough, I don't want to joke about it really because it's serious, but he was fortunate enough to be working for a company that was having to rebuild after it was the time of the IRA bombing, so it's that, and he does joke about it that they kept us afloat, but it's I didn't see him. He was just working every hour God gave him, and then at the weekends he was he was present, but he was tired.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
And so, but then it makes me very aware that I want to be there for my kids, but also I'm trying to build this because I don't have any other skills. It's not like I can't then stop and apply for a job being an accountant or something. I literally don't have anything else. But I don't think I would want to do anything else.
Being your own boss is fearfully frightening, but it's also kind of liberating in a way. But it's definitely double-edged. Yeah,
but one thing but you get. You must get it. People say it must be great to be your own boss because you can, take time off when you need to. You hear that quite a lot, and I just think, well, no, it is. And yes, if something goes wrong, I can drop it. I don't have to ask anybody. I can literally just walk out the door and go. Yeah. But I do have a boss, and it's me, and I'm an absolute arsehole. And I don't take time, I'll come in with snot pouring out of me and, feeling like rubbish and have no sleep. Because there's the fear of, it could all, the buck stops with you.
Yeah, and there will be customers who you've promised stuff to, and you don't want to let them down.
No.
Not because it's bad for business, just because you don't want to let them down.
But
It could be bad for business, but I don't think, and I'm pretty certain you're the same, the reason you don't want to let people down is because you don't want to let them down.
Yeah.
Not because they might say something nasty about you on Instagram.
No, I don't care what people say.
It's because you don't want to, you've committed to doing something for someone and you want to deliver on it.
Yeah, but also, I mean, things go wrong all the time. I mean, but if nothing ever did go wrong, you wouldn't learn anything. You've got to push yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
You've got to push yourself, fall over, make the mistake, acknowledge the mistake, and then recover and fix it.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it's constantly pushing yourself. Going back to that running thing, you know, it is. You've got to keep doing it, because otherwise you don't learn. And it's keeping yourself kind of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, that thing. Because we could all sit in our safety zones forever, but then you would end up, if you're lucky enough to get grand old age, sitting in an old people's home with just regrets of stuff you haven't done. And I wouldn't want to be there, you know.
Yeah.
I went a bit deep. We need to
we did that.
Yeah. We need to say, I don't know, some cock jokes or something.
I'll leave that to you.
Okay, yeah. Kev and I'll get on that later.
What? Yeah, so where does that leave us? At the end of a series or the beginning of a series?
Yeah, we're just carrying on.
So we're in our chaotic style.
Yeah, but again,
we're going to do some more.
We are going to do some more. There'll be some more, but
and I've missed not doing them over the last few weeks.
Yeah, because it is fun. It's nice to talk.
And it's also it's a completely different, I don't want to use the expression skill set, but it exercises a different part of your brain than working on making stuff.
Yeah.
Finding out things about other people, I find, it's very interesting. Interviewing is really hard.
Yes.
But it's something that I would like to get good at.
Yeah, but again, you're not going to get better at it unless you try it, fail, do some terrible ones, and hope that people
make lots of mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah, just hope people stick with you.
And make sure that you press record on everything at the beginning.
Oh my lord, did we? Yeah. Yes, we did.
All the numbers are going up.
That's definitely recording.
Brilliant.
There you go. I think we've done that one.
We have. See you next time. And you.
and you. Oh.
The dark downturn at the end of the podcast. Did I tell you that I went to a Jim will fix it